Hey Year 7s, it's Mr. CHEN-KE here. I wanted to make a quick video lesson today, walking you guys through scene analysis. So we know that this week in our unit on Edward Scissorhands, our focus is on film techniques. So you're going to have 4 lessons this week to cover each of the film techniques on your screen right now. So in your first lesson this week, which a lot of you guys would have already had, your focus was on camera angles and shot types. In the second lesson, we're going to be looking at sound and audio in Edward Scissorhands. Third lesson, we're going to be talking about one of the key film techniques, lighting. And last but not least, in your fourth lesson, we're going to be looking at a film technique called mise-en-scene. Now, after each of these lessons on key film techniques, you're going to be asked to write a short scene analysis paragraph. Essentially, in each of these scene analysis paragraph writing tasks, your job is to identify how each of these film techniques are being used in the movie Edward Scissorhands to convey meaning to the audience. And you're going to be analysing the impact and the effects that these film techniques have in relation to Edward Scissorhands. So you might be wondering, why are we doing this? And we're doing this because in our upcoming CAT, which is in about 2 to 3 weeks time, you're actually going to be writing a scene analysis based on a chosen scene from Edward Scissorhands. So in a couple weeks from now, you're going to be given a list of scenes from the movie from your teacher, and you're going to select one of them to write a scene analysis paragraph on. So the goal of your upcoming CAT and the goal of your scene analysis will be to firstly identify the film techniques that are evident in the scene that you choose to analyse. So by film techniques, I'm obviously talking about camera angles, shot types, sound, audio, lighting, mise-en-scene, all those topics that we're going to cover this week. Secondly, for this CAT, you're going to analyse the impact and the effect of these film techniques on the audience. And third, you're going to consider the director's message. So in your CAT, you're going to write about what you think Tim Burton is trying to say to the audience or show the audience through your chosen scene that you're analysing. So before I walk you through how to structure and write a scene analysis, I wanted to make a quick note on the impact and effects of film techniques. So remember, it's not enough to simply identify the different film techniques in a scene. You also have to consider their impact and effect. So I wanted to give you 2 examples today of the impacts and effects of film techniques. So we've got 2 different types of camera angles in these stills. So one is a high angle shot, and the still or the image that accompanies it is from the Avengers. And the other is a low angle shot. And we've obviously got a picture of Batman accompanying that angle. So in the high angle shot, we see that Thor and Captain America look really vulnerable. It's almost like they're looking up at something, and what is above them is really scary. And it makes the superheroes, so the high angle shot makes the superheroes look really small, almost minuscule, like little dots. Therefore, the villain that they're battling must be super powerful to make a superhero look pretty scared and look pretty inferior. So that's the impact of the high angle in this image. Now on the flip side, we've also got a low angle shot, and the effect of this low angle shot of Batman is that it makes him look really big, defiant, really powerful, and even in the midst of all the chaos in the background, it looks like some shrapnel has been blown up, Batman still appears like he's in control and he's confident in his abilities. So the low angle shot in this case, the effect or the impact of this shot or this angle is to make Batman look powerful and defiant. So just remember, whenever you identify a film technique when you're doing scene analysis, great that you've identified it, but make sure you go that one step further and analyse the impact and the effect of this technique. Alrighty, Year 7s. So now I'm going to walk you through the steps that you're going to need to follow in order to plan and ultimately at the end, write a scene analysis. Now I'm going to be focusing on the film techniques, camera angles and shot types today, but you can follow this exact same 4-step process regardless of which film technique you're analysing. So you could follow this same 4-step process if you're analysing sound and audio, lighting and mise-en-scene as well. But for today's activity and for this guided video lesson, I'm going to focus specifically on analysing a scene from Edward Scissorhands, and we're going to look specifically at the impact and the effect of camera angles and shot types in this scene. So when you're writing a scene analysis and when you're planning a scene analysis, you want to essentially do 4 things. Number 1, you want to identify what's happening in the scene. Number 2, you want to identify all the different camera angles and shot types, or any film technique for that matter, that you can spot. Number 3, you want to analyze the impact or the effect of these camera angles and shot types. And last but not least, number 4, you need to consider the director's message. So in our case, what is Tim Burton, the director of Edward Scissorhands, trying to say to the audience or show the audience through this scene that you're analysing? So a really good way to plan your paragraph or plan your scene analysis is by drawing this table in your exercise books. And as you watch the scene, you want to slowly fill out this table. You can also fill out this table after you finish watching the scene. Now, I would recommend that whatever scene you choose to analyse or your teacher tells you to analyse, you want to watch it at least 2 times. As you're watching the scene twice, I highly recommend filling out this table. So in the green column, what's actually happening in this scene that you're analysing? Just give a short description. In the yellow section, so list all the different types of camera angles and shot types that you can spot while you're watching this scene. In the red, what is the impact or the effect of these camera angles and shot types? And last but not least, in the blue, what is Tim Burton trying to say to the audience or show the audience through this scene? So I'm going to ask you guys to pause your videos now and draw this table in your English workbooks so you can have it ready before we watch the video on the next slide. So just pause your video and make sure you draw this table in your workbooks. Okie dokie, year 7. So by now you should have drawn up the scene analysis planning table in your English workbooks. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on this click view link and I'm going to play you a video, and we're calling this video the Town versus Edward scene. You would have already watched this scene last week when we were analysing themes in Edward Scissorhands. So what I want you to do is watch this scene once I play it, and as you're watching this scene, make sure you're trying to fill out that table that you copied into your workbooks. If you need to watch the scene twice, feel free to rewind this video, but I'm going to play you the scene now.
What are you doing? Get away from here! Hey! Let go of me! What? Kevin! Hey! Get off of him! Get away! What happened? Edward, come home!
Run.
Kevin's all right! Susie, it was just the tiniest scratch, and
sevens, you should have watched the Town versus Edward scene a couple of times, and as you were watching the scene, or after you watched the scene, you should have filled out this scene analysis planning table. So I'm going to walk you guys through how I filled out the table. Now, if there's anything that I've written in my table that you've missed, feel free to add it into your own table. But if there's anything that you wrote that I haven't included in my table, chances are you're probably correct. The beauty of scene analysis is it's relatively up to the student or the person analysing the scene to interpret what's going on in the scene. So don't stress if you've written something that I haven't. So I'm going to start off with the green. So what's actually happening in this scene? So I've written that Edward saves Kevin in this scene from being hit by a car that's been driven by a drunken Jim and his mate. However, Edward accidentally cuts Kevin when he pushes him out of the way of the car and lands on top of him. Now, unfortunately, the neighbourhood think that he's actually attacking Kevin when he's not. Therefore, they all turn on Edward. So in the yellow and the red, you had to make a list of all the different camera angles and shot types that you spotted in the scene, and then you had to comment on the impact or the effect of these camera angles and shot types. So there were obviously many camera angles and shot types. I've chosen to focus on some of the main ones. So in the top left hand corner, you've got a low angle mid shot. So it's a low angle because the camera is placed directly or a little bit below Edward, so it's angling up at Edward, and it's a mid shot because you can see Edward from his torso upwards. Now, I think that this low angle mid shot makes Edward look like he's in power. So he's towering over and attacking Kevin. Now, the neighbours who run out perceive Edward to be attacking Kevin when in reality Edward's actually probably just saved Kevin's life. But because of their negative attitude or their prejudice against Edward, they think that he's actually attacking Kevin. Now, even though he's not, this film technique, so the low angle and the mid shot, make it look like he is actually attacking Kevin with his scissor hands. So again, that's the impact and the effect of this camera angle. There's also a slight high angle shot. So it looks on surface value to be a eye level shot, but it's actually, the camera has been slightly positioned above Edward. So we're going to call this a high angle shot. Now again, it makes Edward seem like he's towering over Kevin because Kevin is below Edward in this shot. So it makes Kevin seem like he's vulnerable. So that's the effect of this slight high angle shot. I've also taken a screenshot of a close-up shot because it's quite important. One might think that Edward was actually attacking Kevin, and that's what the neighbours think. But when you look at Edward's facial expressions through the close-up shots, it's clear that he's innocent and he's concerned about Kevin's well-being, and he's not actually attacking him. And I've also included a high-angle shot here of the neighbours chasing Edward and the police car chasing Edward back to his mansion. So I've filled out the yellow and red portions of my table. So I've identified all the different types of camera angles and shot types that I could spot in the scene. And I've also written a very short description of the impact and the effect of these scenes. And the last thing we need to do when we're planning our scene analysis, so this is before we put our scene analysis paragraph together, is comment on director's message. So that's the blue. So what's Tim Burton trying to say to the audience or show the audience through this scene that we've just watched? So I think that he's trying to say a couple of things. Number one, I think Edward Scissorhands will always make him an outsider in society. And because of his, I guess, quote-unquote deformity, everyone in the neighbourhood is always going to view him and consider him to be different. Because it's literally impossible for him to conform to society. So I think that Tim Burton is trying to show the audience, so us, the viewer, that we have to accept people like Edward for the differences, rather than judging them on their physical appearance and thinking the worst of them. So I really think this scene shows how people who are considered different can be ostracized and excluded from a community. And I think it also shows how people who are considered different often are perceived in automatically a really negative way. And I think that's really damaging. So now that we've filled out our scene analysis planning table, it's time to put all of this together into a cohesive paragraph. So remember these colours, green, yellow, red and blue, because I'm going to show you now a paragraph that has been written, so a scene analysis paragraph analysing the scene that we just watched, and I've colour coded it to match the specific sections of this table. So let me read this scene analysis paragraph with you guys, and then I'm going to break it down based on what each of those colours represent. So I've written that the concept of difference is particularly evident within this scene, as Edward is perceived to be evil and threatening, his rescue of Kevin misjudged. The camera is strategically positioned at a low angle mid-shot to emphasise that Edward is the individual in power, seemingly confirming the community's perceptions of him. Whilst Edward fumbles with his scissor hands, the framing shifts to a high angle shot which accentuates Kevin's vulnerability. However, this power dynamic can be contested as multiple close-up shots reveal Edward's misunderstood gentleness and concern. As the neighbourhood closes in, calling for Edward to get away from Kevin, the camera shifts from a mid-shot to a close-up of Edward. This serves to highlight Edward's fear and childlike innocence as he unintentionally hurts others with his sharp scissors. It is understood that whilst Edward's hands make him unique from the conformed society he is exposed to, they will inhibit him from establishing relationships. Ultimately, through this scene, Tim Burton suggests that it is only when others learn to accept difference and look past outward appearance that creativity and individuality can be celebrated. So this is an example of the final product, a scene analysis paragraph, and you're going to be able to write something similar to this in the next couple of weeks with a little bit of practice. So it doesn't come naturally. You're going to have to write a couple of paragraphs and practice following this structure in order to get comfortable with it. But you're going to be able to produce this in about 2 to 3 weeks on your CAT. So let me break down this paragraph with you guys based on the color coding. So in the first sentence, the green is what is happening in this scene. So I've literally just taken my notes from the table and I've reworded it for the first sentence. And in the first sentence of any scene analysis paragraph, you also want to offer an interpretation. So what do you think is the main idea or the main message that is being explored in the scene that you're analysing? And I think that the main idea is difference and how, because Edward is perceived to be different from society, he's automatically stereotyped as someone who's evil and threatening, and he's automatically judged for who he is. In the yellow in this paragraph, I have identified different types of camera angles and shot types in the scene that we just watched. So it's important that you use the specific meta language, so the correct terminology, like low angle, mid shot, high angle shot, close-up shots. So you want to use those specific terms in your paragraphs as well. Now, importantly, not only have I identified different types of camera angles and shot types in the yellow there, but I've also tried to explain the effect and the purpose of these camera angles and shot types in the red. So for example, in the second sentence, I've said that the camera is strategically positioned at a low angle mid shot to emphasize that Edward is the individual in power. So that's an example of one, identifying a film technique, but also talking a little bit about the effect of that film technique. Last but not least, in the blue, I have outlined what I believe Tim Burton's message is through this scene. So I think that through this scene, Tim Burton is suggesting that it is only when we learn to accept people's differences and look past their physical appearances that creativity and people's individuality, so what makes us different and what makes us special from the people around us, can be celebrated. So you always want to end your scene analysis paragraphs with what you feel like Tim Burton's ultimate message is. Through this scene, what do you think Tim Burton is trying to teach the audience? Or what do you think he wants the audience to learn? What do you think he's trying to show the audience or say to the audience? So this is an example of a scene analysis paragraph that's been broken down. And as you can tell, this paragraph is specifically based on this table that you filled out and we filled out together. So it's really important that you spend some time planning your response by filling out this table and then ultimately writing your finished product, your full scene analysis paragraph. All right. Thank you for listening, guys, and thank you for following along with this guided video lesson. I'm going to hand pass it to you guys now. So your job is to click on this link, which is going to take you to another scene from Edward Scissorhands. And I want you to use the modeled paragraph, so this one, as a guide, and I want you to watch the scene that I've linked there and fill out this exact same table as you're watching the scene. And then afterwards, I want you to have a go at writing your own scene analysis paragraph. So for my class, please write your scene analysis paragraph in your film technique student workbook. So that looks like this. So make sure that you're writing it in here. So at the end of the week, you're going to write and you're going to complete all the activities in this student booklet. And then you're going to submit it to Compass. I'll explain the learning task and where to submit it in a later lesson this week. Okay, so just to summarize, your job is to watch this scene and use the guided paragraph or the modeled paragraph and the exact same table that we filled in together through this video to plan your scene analysis out, and then ultimately your goal is to write your own scene analysis paragraph. If you have any questions, make sure you're emailing your teacher or posting on our Google Classroom. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this helps, and I hope you enjoy today's activity. All right, thanks, Year 7s. Bye.